for the next half hour or so. We're looking ahead to the third and final test between England and Pakistan. Test match special. We'll have ball-by-ball commentary on air from 10:25 tomorrow morning. There'll be live text commentary with in-play video clips via the BBC Sport website and app, and TV highlights on BBC Two at 7 p.m. and on the iPlayer. And joining me from the Ageas Bowl, our correspondent Jonathan Agnew, World Cup winner with England Isha Guha, and our commentator Atif Nawaz. Good evening, all of you.
Good evening to you.
Missing you, Ellie.
Good evening.
Yes, well, I'm missing you too. But look, let's. I've got one very simple question to ask you in a second, because we're going to hear from Joe Root. We'll talk about team selection as well. But there were 134.3 overs possible in the last test. So less play than I think since 1987 in a test match. But it means that play can start at the earlier time of 10:30 this week if time has been lost earlier in the match to rain or bad light. So Aggers, what's the weather forecast for the South Coast?
Well, it's not bad. There's some showers around. It's a very, very windy day tomorrow, sort of 30 knots coming straight down the ground. So I don't know how that's going to affect selection, certainly for England. It'll limit the options that Joe Root has, really, so which end can be bowled from his quicker bowlers, for instance. But as far as that early start's concerned, I mean, it does make a lot of sense. Whether it's something that will be used beyond this summer. I mean, bear in mind that everybody that is required to get the game going is here, locked in on the ground, and so you can go whenever you like. It's like 10 o'clock if you wanted to, and there's no reason at all why play can't start at 10:30. The only thing is, if you remember when Channel 4 had the rights, and there was a season where it started at past, I think it's 2005 actually, there was an issue because it's not. Our supporters to English Test cricket are travelling supporters, a lot of them. I know a lot of Londoners go to Lords and the Oval, but so do a lot from outside. Likewise with Headingley and Edgbaston and so on. They book their tickets in advance because we know train travel is very expensive. And if you are going to suddenly expect people to change that travel at no notice, it is going to cost people money. And there's also a question of them being aware. This decision is not going to be made until probably after play the day before. So if it does go into next year and beyond, when we do have spectators in the grounds, those people are going to have to be aware of what is going on and prepare either to be flexible with those travel plans and probably pay more, therefore, for those travel plans, or be prepared to miss the first half hour of play.
But what will happen, Isha, then, it will only kick in if we lose play on one day or another. That will be the point where they'll say, right, OK, we can start a little bit earlier. We can make up some of those overs at the start of the day when it's light, rather than at the end of the day when it can get quite dark.
Yeah, and the bad light was a frustration as well in that last test. We finally were getting out there, and then the players were having to come off because it was too gloomy to play. So, yeah, I think the players are totally fine with it, if I'm honest. I think, they're more than happy to go out there. There has been talk in the past of starting too early. Is there going to be dew? Is it going to be unfavourable to... And kind of lean in the opposition's favour or the home side's favour? But actually, when there's been a bit of rain, sometimes you get a bit of sprinkling on the surface anyway, so you're having to deal with those conditions. So I don't think it's going to be weighted in one team's favour or the other. I think they're just going to have to accept that is the case, and the fact that we'll be able to get some play. I think everyone will just be delighted with that, including the broadcasters.
Yes, they will. But the only problem is because it isn't set in stone and because it is flexible, people are going to have to find out whether or not it's changed overnight. That's the only thing I would say. Somehow people are going to be, if they are going to the cricket the next day, they're going to have to find out what time it starts, and that's people aren't used to that.
So it's a decision at the moment just for this test match. But yeah, as you say, going forward, I mean, lots of interesting comments on social media about this today. But most of them actually congratulating the ECB, the ICC, the England, the Pakistan teams for coming to this decision quite quickly. Simon says, why not a 10 a.m. start? Surely this is the best time to trial with no spectators. But well done for taking swift action on what was becoming a big issue. And Doug says it's a good starting point. Still don't understand having a cut-off at the end of the day. If there is sufficient light, make them play until the minimum overs are bowled. And I suppose, Atif, that was one of the things about this last test match, wasn't it? There was one day where they called off play at about, 3:30. And then at 4 o'clock, beautiful sunshine, and it was lovely into the evening, and even nice enough for a couple of games of concourse cricket, in which various test match special staff members were, actually had some pretty memorable batting performances.
Yes, they certainly did. In particular, Adam Mountford, our producer, who managed to get runs against two old classic cricketers. I mean, Wazir Akram and Shane Warne, and we shall never hear the end of it. So we'll stop for now. But it was desperately disappointing from the Pakistanis' perspective as well. The chats that I had with the team members, they felt like they were really hard done by. They got very unlucky because, when you think about the way that first Test match unfolded, they were in control for a large part of it, and they lost a crucial session and a half, and that kind of took England over the line. But they really felt like they were well and truly on top in the second game. And obviously, from our perspective, it looked like it was very much in the balance of the game. It's hard to call one person on top, but their feeling was they were in the game, and they were kind of shut out by the weather. And they haven't lost a series to England since 2010, so they'll be keen to protect that record in the last Test match. And the conditions are going to be very heavily scrutinised. The umpires and the ground staff took a lot of stick the first time around for the second Test match here at Southampton. So hoping we'll get a lot more kind of dynamism about the game, a more willingness to kind of think on its feet, and let common sense be played out. So hopefully we'll get a decent game.
Absolutely. Well, after 7 incredibly intense weeks, it's already the final test of the summer, and Aggers has been having a chat with the England captain. Here's Joe Root.
We've not got Test cricket till next year now, so we've got no excuses, every opportunity to go out there and throw everything into this last game, and that's all you can really ask of the group. They've worked really hard throughout this period. There's been different challenges to put up with compared to a normal Test summer, and I think we've responded well to them, to be honest. And we've got one more weeks of really hard graft, give everything to the badge and to the team and to each other, and make sure we finish the summer strong.
And do you think there have been some positives off the field as well? I mean, have some of the younger players on the fringe got a bit of a feel for what it's like to be playing Test cricket, and have you got to know some of your colleagues a little better, those in the team?
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing about this environment is you're basically living in the same house as the rest of the guys for extended periods of time in the UK.
It's like Big Brother, really, isn't it?
To an extent, yeah. But I think one of our big strengths as a group or one thing we focus on quite hard is the culture of this team and how we want to take things moving forward, and how we want to create an environment to better everyone involved. And experiences like this definitely help nurture that and give guys more responsibility to take that on. I think we've done that brilliantly. We've seen some young guys come in and seen some new faces and how they are around the team and how they train and stuff, and it's been really interesting, and it's been a great opportunity as well for us to have a look at the depth within the players around the initial squad, especially at that initial stage when we had that extended bubble, if you like, in that group. So there's been so many good things that have come from it from that point of view, and that competition for place is you want that to be pushing hard all the time, so the standard's always driving forward, and I think you've definitely seen that throughout this summer.
Just one new innovation. I don't know how short-lived it'll be, but the question about the light starting early and so on, which clearly was brought about through the last game. It seems a good idea, doesn't it? I mean, if everyone's here, the weather's all right, let's get playing.
Yeah, I think it's sensible. I do feel for the umpires a little bit last week. I thought they did everything they could to follow the rules and do everything by the book, and unfortunately we missed quite a lot of cricket, but I don't think that was their fault at all. I think with this now in place, it gives the officials and the players a bit more opportunity to try and stay out there longer and to get more cricket on, which is what everyone wants, really. We want to be out there playing, and we don't want to miss time through bad light if we can avoid it. But see how it works this week, and see if it's something that's here to stay. If not, then let's make the most of it while it's here.
Well, that was Joe Root talking to Aggers a little bit earlier on today. It is extraordinary to think, isn't it, as we said, after this intense time, this is the last Test potentially in 2020. And Anisha, I wonder what you have made of England this summer. What have we learnt about this Test team?
Really impressed by them. The first time in a long time where we've had a group of players that have all been fit and raring to go, and excited about seeing the depth in talent, a relatively inexperienced top order, and we've seen guys put their hands up at different stages. Rory Burns with a 90-odd against the West Indies, Dom Sibley with a century. Zach Crawley looked... I was really impressed with him in the last Test match, picking up a 50, having to come out in really tricky circumstances against a fired-up bowling attack from Pakistan with conditions that suited them, and he managed to get through that period, knowing as well that the rain was coming or the bad light. So that's always tough for a batter out in the middle, and then being able to make the most of being able to get out there on the final day again, when perhaps he might have switched his mind off to cricket for a while there and not knowing whether he was going to get out or not. I thought it was fantastic to see the way he played. Ollie Pope as well has put in some really valuable contributions. Again, when England have lost quick wickets. Jos Buttler, a lot of questions around his place in the side. What a performance it was with Chris Woakes up at Manchester. And, we've seen a lot of character from these players. Ben Stokes was a star at the start of the Test summer. And what I've really been impressed with within the whole group is just how well and how professional they've been throughout the course of the last 6 weeks or so. When you think about how difficult it might have been being at home for 3 months and then suddenly being away from their families, especially when they don't get to see their families too much across the course of a year, that could have been a lot more difficult for a lot of the players, but they were so professional in their attitude. And
it's because it's quite a bonding thing, isn't it? I mean, as Agger's suggested to Joe Root, that actually when you've got everybody all together crammed into one small space, I think those of us who've been part of the media bubble have felt like that in lots of ways. It's actually been really good fun, and I think I think the Pakistan team feel like that as well, Ati, from what I've been reading, what they've been saying about it.
Yeah, absolutely. They've all reflected really well on each other. I was talking to Naseem Shah a couple of days ago, and he's 17 and he's away from home for a very, very long period of time. Now, they're used to being away from home, but they usually get to go out and see people. And a lot of the players that I spoke to, they lamented not being able to go to their favorite restaurants or meet their friends or things like that. But they all complimented each other on being really supportive, really entertaining. Imam ul Haq was picked out as a player who makes everybody laugh. They talked about sort of enjoying a little bit of downtime, loving the technology. They can keep in touch with their families. So, it's a really kind of jolly feel in that, it's a very positive feel in that kind of contingent. There's 42 people here from Pakistan, and 28 of them are players. There's a wonderful sense of camaraderie. They're always laughing and enjoying themselves in spite of conditions and the restrictions imposed on them. So they've definitely, I think it's been a positive bonding experience for them for sure.
But it's been difficult. I mean, and as you think about the England players who've not played a part in this series, obviously Ben Foakes, Jack Leach as well, who we bumped into him, didn't we, at Old Trafford during the first Test match, and it's tricky when Mark Wood hasn't been involved since the first Test against the West Indies either. It's difficult when players want to play.
Yeah, of course, and the trouble is, I was hoping that you might hear that Leach and Foakes could go off and play some cricket, but they can't because they're COVID substitutes. So they, even though they know they're not going to play in this game, they're still stuck here. There are still some question marks for me the way this summer has panned out. I think the technique of both openers has been exposed. Burns and Sibley, I think there's still question marks about them going forward. Is Dom Bess really the leading spinner that England have? James Anderson, what are they going to do with James Anderson? I don't think anyone knows what's going to happen.
Well, this was supposed to be the great summer of rotation, wasn't it? That they were going to rotate their fast bowlers, but when you've got two such huge characters in the squad,
because both got angry. Both got angry, and so that's gone out of the window. And Jos Buttler, is he the man to keep wicket in India? There's a lot of stuff that still hasn't been settled yet. And I know it's been a strange summer, and I think what I admire about all the teams that have taken part in this summer is that they've done so really pretty rusty, without the preparation that you'd expect of Test cricketers to have. And they've played in some pretty awkward conditions too. But the standard of play has been much higher than I thought it was going to be, and I think I'll give them great credit for that.
The only thing I'll say about that, Aggers, is just with the performances that we've seen, they've all done enough, haven't they, to be there or thereabouts for the first test whenever that happens next year. There's not a lot of cricket.
They've done enough.
They've done enough to warrant a chance to be part of that squad, and it feels like with this England team that Joe Root wants togetherness. He wants a period where they can play together as long as possible. When you think of the Ashes next year, and it's not to say that if there is a string of bad performances, they won't change things up, but there have been performances throughout the course of this summer that has suggested that he might just stick with them going forwards.
Do you think that they have missed an opportunity, Aggers? Because we, at the start of the summer, we were saying, right, Ashes 18 months away. Will it be Archer and Wood? England need pace. Will it be Archer and Wood? Have they actually missed the opportunity to really give them a good chance in this summer and start to put those plans in place?
Well, I'm going to contradict myself because I'm always against rotation, and I've said that so many times, because as a player you have to believe in the selection process and know that the best team is being selected, and that if you're playing well, you are going to earn your cap in the next match. However, what I thought England got wrong was at the first test of this summer announcing that this was their best bowling attack, because it wasn't. And it was kind of convenient for them to try and...
it was Archer, Anderson and Wood, wasn't it, in the first test? Yeah.
Correct. And it wasn't their best attack, because Stuart Broad has shown palpably that he's still in the best attack. But because of the uncertainty of what's going to happen in the future, there is a strong possibility that England might not play any Test cricket this coming winter. In which case you go into next summer, again, not knowing really what is in store. And that really is a summer, obviously, because you've got to get starting a team properly bedded down, not just a few, well, he might be all right and he's getting on a bit, and will he get through an Ashes tour? But they really do have to start getting plans in place for that tour of Australia. And I think there is still a number of question marks about a number of key players. Is Jack Leach, Ben Foakes? I haven't seen any of them. And yet, is Ben Foakes going to keep wicket in India? Is Jack Leach going to be part of the spin attack that plays in India? He hasn't played since before Christmas. Yeah, so with the 6 tests that have been played, yes, I think they could have done more to have seen more of different players. And I am contradicting myself because I'm not really hugely in favour of rotation. But when you look back at it and what has happened, then I think there are still some question marks there that have to be answered somehow. I
wonder what conversations we're going to be having ahead of the first day at the Gabba in November next year. It does feel like a long way away. There's a few landmarks on the horizon, aren't there? So Jimmy Anderson is 7 away from 600, and goodness me, you've got to be a pretty strong captain to drop somebody who is that close to 600. Babar Azam is close to 2,000 test runs, Atif, as well. Do you think that we maybe, it would be, I kind of feel that the series needs a great Babar Azam century somewhere, or a big innings from him?
Well, the expectation is definitely there amongst fans and himself and the team. He's been hyped up very aggressively ahead of this series. He is the next great Pakistani batsman. His stats match up against everybody in the world. And unusually, even though he didn't do anything spectacular in the previous game, he's gone further up in the world rankings as well. So there's this huge expectation of Babar Azam having to perform, and really he's only got 2 innings left to do it. He will lament that second test match and not being able to stamp his authority on that game in a circumstance where he was well placed and just got an incredible delivery. But yeah, I think the cricket world expects him to deliver, and it would certainly be good for the series. It'd certainly be good for Pakistan to see that and give him a ton of confidence.
And I mean, he is a great player, but I wonder actually. We mentioned the whole Jos Buttler, Ben Foakes thing just now, and there's a really interesting piece, Isha, which I was just reading, written by our colleague Adam Collins in The Independent, saying that actually Mohammad Rizwan is a good example for somebody who had to be patient, and now he's been the glove man of the summer, hasn't he? Really, in terms of the tests that we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, the runs that he's produced, just that steely determination to come in, especially after someone like Sarfraz, who is quite a larger-than-life sort of character, and he's had to come in and do a job. I saw him score a 90-odd in Australia against a world-class pace attack, one of the best pace attacks in the world, if not the best at the moment. And I think when you see that in his batting, I think it definitely stands Pakistan in good stead going forwards. And it just adds to the depth of that lineup as well. But yeah, with the gloves, I mean, we've seen him miss a couple of opportunities. We've seen all the keepers this summer miss opportunities. The Ben Foakes conundrum, it's an interesting one. I think that is always going to be a question of what England want in terms of their balance and how they want Jos Buttler to play. I think Jos Buttler has now proven that I think the questions around Jos have always been, should he be this Adam Gilchrist style player? I think he wants to show to everyone that he can do both and he can play the Test match innings. I think we saw elements of that in that knock with Chris Woakes up at Manchester. Okay, he did play with a little bit more freedom because he recognised that actually that was the best way to win the game, was to actually be a bit more positive. But in general, he's coming in situations in this summer where England have lost a few quick wickets and he's had to almost stabilise the innings a little bit before he's been able to go again. And I feel like Joe just wants to keep giving him opportunities. With Ben, we know what we're going to get with him. We know he's the best glove man around. We know that. So for me, that is a question about the balance in the side and what they're getting from their keeper as well. And those decisions, they're tough ones. They are really tough decisions to make. I mean, now that Chris Woakes is producing with the bat, does that change things up a bit, Aggers? I'm not sure.
Well, for me, I mean, England are likely to be so outgunned in India, they can't afford any mistakes. So you have to have your best wicketkeeper keep a wicket for me, but then when do you put him in? Because they're likely, if they do play there, to have only 1 or 2 practice matches. So the decision really is going to be made before they go, which one is going to keep wicket. So he does at least get a couple of games and then gets the Test match. Because otherwise, once the Test matches start, it's too late. And if Jos Buttler does play in the first one and makes a couple of mistakes, well, Ben Foakes hasn't had any cricket. So do you just bring him in on a hunch? I think if it does happen, England's tour in India is going to be the hardest tour that they'll have had for a long time. They are going to be so up against it that they simply cannot. You cannot afford to make any mistakes. I'm not saying that Ben Foakes might not make mistakes and that Jos Buttler will, but you just look at the form, you look at the talent of the keeper. It's like looking at Mohammad Rizwan and compared to Jos Buttler. You know, he's a beautiful gloveman, Rizwan. He does make mistakes. All wicketkeepers make mistakes. It's a really difficult place to be. But I just think England are going to have to be so careful that they give India nothing ahead of what they've got anyway, that they're going to have to really address that situation.
Well, look, you've got a Test match to get through. You've got an early start in the morning, all of you. Thank you so much to Jonathan Agnew, Isha Guha and Atif Nawaz, who will all be part of Test match special ball-by-ball commentary on air from 10:25 tomorrow morning, live text commentary and in-play video clips via the BBC Sport website and app. And there'll be TV highlights on BBC Two at 7 p.m. and also on the iPlayer.